and then they seem smooth, but if you run two of them, the system breaks down, and you can clearly see how it is implemented with a dirty trick. So now the cube still gets all the 100%, and only now do you get all the time back. So these are very interesting demos to demonstrate the video system and the differences with other video systems. It should be quite easy to get this to run on Linux and thus on Syllable server, because it's just software rendering on SDL. And I can't even remember if I did that half a year ago, but I vaguely remember that that I didn't get it to work at that time, so I really did this work on Syllable desktop itself. I often try to work on Syllable workstation because it's more stable, and then continue the work on Syllable desktop. But in this case, because this is very much graphics work, it was more comfortable to actually do the work on Syllable desktop. And now I have to compile the same stuff on Syllable workstation. And then you can see how the very same demos run in Linux on X11 with 2D rendering, because then you can try it on Linux Mint or something to see if there's a difference if you have a 3D hardware composited desktop. That probably makes a difference with such things, because if you do this on X11, you'll see a lot of dragging in the underlying window, and especially the icons on the desktop will visibly be redrawn once you move the window away over it on X11. In the first place, that's not happening here because Syllable is faster, but it's not happening at all because at the moment there's enough video memory that Syllable has a hardware back buffering for every window. So what I said a while ago, if you move the windows, then the underlying windows are really not redrawn, at least not in software. They're composited in hardware by the video chip. So that's really a hardware acceleration, but 2D. And the thing with Linux is that the X11, the traditional X11 desktop, is not really composited, although there is an X11 composite extension, but my impression is that it's not used a lot. And Linux only does desktop compositing in hardware 3D acceleration. So the frustrating thing with Linux is that you always have a slow desktop rendering, especially on a somewhat older machine. And if you want to have the kind of hardware window compositing that Syllable is doing here, you have to make a big step to OpenGL 3D acceleration on Linux to get the same functionality. And then a window is kept not so much in a traditional video back buffer, but in a 3D texture. In a Linux composited desktop, the same as on new Mac OS X and the newest Windows versions. Their desktops are 3D hardware accelerated, and that means that a window is kept as a 3D texture. So the 3D chip composites the desktop by compositing windows as textures. And that's all built on 3D. And here it works the same. It's also passed to the hardware, but it's a 2D hardware interface. very old video cards can do this. It's just that to have all the windows back buffered, you need enough video memory. So if you have an old card, it's not so much the video chip that prohibits it, but when the video memory is full, Syllable will switch to non-back buffered windows. So if you open the first 1 or 2 windows, they will be back buffered, and if you open more windows, they will be software back buffered again. So there will be software composited again, simply because you run out of video memory. But other than that, this works on very old video cards, as long as the Syllable driver has an overlay implementation. And I think at least 3 of our drivers support overlays. So on most of the popular video chips you have hardware compositing here without 3D. And 3D is always a big problem for an alternative operating system. And traditionally it was a big problem on Linux. And only the last few years do you get reasonable 3D hardware support on Linux, and still only on the top video cards. It's still a big problem, and you can't get drivers, and you can't get support for somewhat older machines, and that's not an issue at all on Syllable, because it uses the 2D hardware. So those are really big difference between all those video systems. You wanted to start the web browser. Why did you want to do that? Together with
I didn't want it, but I said if, for example, you would do that, would the demos still keep running on the background?
Oh yeah. Okay, so I'll start a demo again. They're also in the menu, by the way. It's the same thing, only they're not categorized. They're under other for the moment being. So do they keep running? Well, the web browser is really the largest Syllable program because it uses the WebKit rendering engine. That's huge, especially in Syllable terms. So the first time you start the browser, it will take a few seconds at least, and now that will be delayed because of the animations, and it has to share with 2 animations now, so in principle it'll get only 1/3 of the CPU time, so you'd expect the loading to be 2 to 3 times slower. So if it would normally start the first time in about 3 seconds on this machine, I think, I would expect it to last maybe even 7 seconds or something. Yeah, 6.5, 7 seconds. Well, this is nice. This is the new welcome document. All our documentation looks quite old, and it's messy. It's done by several people over the years, and it all uses different style sheets and stuff, and not really a document generator. And the welcome document was also quite ugly, and last year for the new live CD, I reformatted and updated the welcome document, and it's now maintained in my my content management system for Syllable. Well, in general for all our content work, but I started writing that for the Syllable websites because they're really a big problem to maintain. And the problem is still that there's an enormous legacy of documents and web pages, so it's a lot of work to rework that into the CMS, so I have to do that really slowly. So I do it at times that I need a piece. I've done, last few weeks I've done quite a few updates to the websites and made them and continued the modernization. But this is what I basically did last year for the new live CD. And the welcome document for the live CD is only a little different from the main welcome document. Well, actually, the live CD didn't have a welcome document, or it just had the generic one. So I made a more specific welcome document for the live CD, and that meant that. Hey, son, welcome.
Goedemorgen. Good
Afternoon.
good afternoon.
We're doing the 3D demos again. Hillard wants a timeout, so we'll have a short timeout.
Right.